Joining us today is the winningest coach in PBA history, 25 titles, including 2 Grand Slams, putting together about 1,000 or more than 1,000 games won. He is making and breaking records and also breaking a lot of hearts. Now is the head coach for the national team, Gilas, Pilipinas. We have with us Coach Tim Con of the Barangay, Ginebra, San Miguel Gin Kings. Hi, Coach Tim.
Hi. Well, it's nice to be here. It means you're doing something right when you're doing these kind of shows.
Kumusta? How are you?
I'm okay. Okay. Had a good experience in Riga. A bad ending, but we felt we accomplished a little bit of things, and now I'm on to Ginebra, and we have Ginebra coming up, and we play in about 3 weeks, and then back to Gilas again in November.
It's basketball, day in, day out, night and day, never ending.
Mhm.
But let's go back first to the numbers that I was talking about, just, introducing you. More than 1,000 games won, 25 titles, 2 Grand Slams. Some can't even have 1 Grand Slam in their coaching career. What do you make of that? Like, what does that mean?
Kind of silly numbers, no. I don't really focus on it. I don't think about it at all. It's always about, moving on and playing the next game, getting ready for the next game, getting ready for the next tournament. Rarely do I spend any time looking back, and I think that's important. And that's not something I want to do. I don't want to look back. I want to keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just said, basketball all the time. There's no rest. I felt like I've never worked a day in my life because I love what I do. I love being around the guys. I like seeing them develop, and now I've kind of elevated into the Gilas program, and now I'm getting to see guys like Kai Soto and Jumar and guys like that. I get to be around them and see them develop as well and play at an international level. So it's all exciting, and you don't look back. You don't worry about what you've done. You got to keep thinking about what you're going to do,
Mm-hmm.
and staying with that process of always forward looking and thinking about the bigger picture. So I hear those numbers. I hear people talk about it, and it just for me, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. It's not something that really concerns me. There's so much more to do.
Because it's a remarkable achievement. Like, nobody has done that here in the basketball landscape that we have in our country. But have you always wanted to be a coach, a basketball coach? Because we know, Coach, for those that have not yet heard, you were once working in a bank. So have you always been
You're going back a few
yeah,
years.
okay. I don't know, you don't want to go back, but let's go back to those years.
Okay.
After college, you worked for a bank.
Yes.
What was your task then?
I was working at an executive program,
Mm-hmm.
training program, right out of college.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I most know that I grew up here, and then I went back to the United States for college, and I spent time there. And then after I graduated, I wasn't sure what the heck to do, so
Mm-hmm.
I moved back to San Francisco where my
Mm-hmm.
sister lived, and I applied and got into a program, and did that for about a year, maybe 14 months, and then I called my mom and I said, "Mom, I want to come home back to Manila,"
Mm-hmm.
and so I did. I came back home without really any idea except that I wanted to be a writer. That was the
You
big
mean
thing.
like a newspaper?
No, I wanted to be a novelist.
Wow.
That was my big dream, was to be a novelist. And I spent the time in the province, living in the province.
In Aurora?
No, that was when I was really young. I was 9 years old when I lived in Aurora, in Baler.
In Baler.
And then when I came back and I lived with my parents were living in southern Quezon,
Quezon Province.
in the Bundok Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent a year down there with them and tried to write, and kind of ran out of money. So the money I had saved, I ran out of money. So I came back to Manila and started working with my father's partner in a meat business of all
Mm-hmm.
things. And then I met my girlfriend, who was to be my wife,
Mm-hmm.
and that was like it. No more going to the province anymore. No more writing. I was going to try to just join business and see what I could do with it. As it turned out, I ran into Fred Uitensu, and he started inviting me to the PBA games. You know, I grew up watching the PBA. I grew up watching Mika. So that was really my learning was through that. It wasn't by watching the NBA. It was really by Mika and the PBA. So when Fred Uitensu started inviting me to the games, it was a whole new level of excitement. You know, he knew me as a basketball player, and one thing led to another, and I went kind of from like consultant to assistant coach, and eventually the head coach, and then got banned for a little bit, and then came back, and got fired for a moment, and then came back, and then ended up winning a Grand Slam early in my career, and that kind of propelled me forward.
You have 25 titles, Coach Tim. The first one was in 1991.
Yes.
And how ironic is it, maybe it's just how it is in the basketball world, that you beat Ginebra to win your very first title.
We
and now
did.
you're coaching Barangay Ginebra.
Well, my mother is actually rolling in her grave right now, knowing that I am coaching Ginebra, because she was there during all my Alaska years, you know, and when I was with Alaska, Ginebra was a huge, huge rival.
Right.
Well, never was everybody's rival, but you know, we would, before every conference, we would get our schedule and find where's that Ginebra game.
And then highlight that.
Yeah, to highlight that Ginebra game, and we were always ready to play Ginebra. That was our big challenge, going in there and going against the Ginebra crowd, and you know the incredibly popular Sonny Jaworski,
Of course.
and their style of play was always a huge battle and challenge for us. And you know, it became a rival for us, and so you know, my family, my mother, and everybody who only knew Alaska, they
Would have
couldn't,
never thought.
they would never have thought I'd ever end up at Ginebra, and so yes, it is ironic. There's a lot of irony there, I think, and that's something my wife and I talk about, you know, often, about how the fortunes turned, and I ended up at Ginebra. Pure Foods first, which was also a big rival, and then Ginebra. And so, and it, you know, Ginebra is Ginebra. You know, it's a completely different experience coaching for Ginebra than anything else. And I think anything else in the world. I don't think there's any real culture that Ginebra brings that is matched anywhere else in the world, where just like the whole country is tuned in. It was actually a great training ground for me, because I always felt like I was coaching a national team, coaching Ginebra, because it seemed like everyone in the whole country was Ginebra fans.
Right.
Yeah. So now transitioning to, or adding on to Gilas, you know, when I was with Alaska and I was coaching the national team, I felt this huge burden that I had never experienced before. This was
The Centennial
1998,
team.
the
Right.
Centennial team. And it was devastating. You know, it was, you know, we didn't win. It was devastating. But then when I got to coach with Ginebra, I kind of got that feeling. I've learned how to deal with, you know, crowds and pressure and such. And so I was able to bring that now to the Gilas. And it's a different feeling now coaching Gilas because of the Ginebra experience.
The decision-making, Coach, were not easy. I can only imagine. From Alaska to BMEG, BMEG to Ginebra, and then eventually saying yes to being head coach for the national team. What's the process like in making these decisions? How can somebody convince you and make you say yes?
Well, I mean, you know, it's everyone's a different challenge, and you know, and I'm challenged by challenges. There were reasons why I didn't initially want to take over Gilas. One was my good friend Chot Reyes.
Right.
He brought me into the program. I didn't want to be the one to replace him. That was a big reason. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to form the program in a way that I felt, could be successful. I didn't just want to step in and take over a program that I didn't have some modicum of control. And so, and I wasn't sure that we were going to be able to get all the players that we needed to be successful. So, those things all had to line up for that yes to come on. So, and it was the same with Alaska. Leaving Alaska was a life-changing situation for me. Leaving Fred Uitensu, who was a good friend of mine, and moving on from that was incredibly difficult. And I never thought I'd recover from that. But then I got into a great situation with Pure Foods, B-Meg, Sam Made Coffee, having a chance to coach James and PJ and Mark and Mike and Ping and Joe Devant was over there as well. It was a different experience but it was, those guys were incredible. And we had some good success there, and then to be transferred over to Ginebra was also, I remember my wife was in Leyte, and it was just after the big typhoon and in Leyte, and she was down there with her company giving out boats to
the victims.
Typhoon. Right. And I came out of a meeting. I called her on the phone. I said, "Chris, you'll never believe this." And she goes, "What?" I said, "I'm with Ginebra now." And she was like, she said she almost dropped the phone when she heard that, because we had no clue. We didn't know it was coming. I walked into a meeting, they let me know, and then I walked out of the meeting, and suddenly I was with Ginebra and no longer with Pure Food. So it was a big shock to the system to do that as well. So, each one has a little story, a backstory on all of them. But, it's just been kind of a progression. Coaching Ginebra is like almost the pinnacle of the PBA, following the footsteps of Sonny Jaworski. It's a tough legacy to follow, and a tough fan base to keep satisfied. And now we've stepped up and gone nationwide and gone to Gilas. So just continuing the progress.
You're talking about, Coach Tim, like how tough the fan base is, especially now when there's social media. Take us back to the days when you were starting in the PBA. There wasn't no X yet or Instagram. You would just read a newspaper, listen to the radio, watch it from the analog TV. How has that changed also? Coaching, the dynamics of coaching. When you've seen it, from that era to now.
Showing my age, yes. It's funny, my wife and my mother started it, and then my wife continued it. They would get newspaper clippings throughout my whole career. Yeah, we have books, and actually hired someone to help us after a while to have these big thick books. We have these clippings of newspaper clippings, magazine clippings that are literally this thick, and we've got maybe 8 or 9 of them that are this thick, and you just go through all the clippings.
All the pages.
Yeah, and then, that was like until, I don't know, 2005 or something like that. And now we have a little USB about this big that has
everything already.
Else.
You plug it in, you see everything.
Yeah, it's got a little USB now. So, there's been a big change, and it's there's a lot more noise that goes on. And you're out there more than you used to be. And you could always, in the past, without the social media, you could easily shut out the noise and just lock in and focus. It's a much more difficult to shut that out right now. And I think even from a family standpoint, my wife reads social media and is involved. Children. Yeah, and bad comments really affect them. And I I saw the devastation that Chuck Reyes went through. He was terrible, and again, that was one of the reasons I didn't want to do it, because I didn't want to fall into that trap that Chuck was in,
Mm-hmm.
and he handled it extremely well. He was really good at handling it. The thing that was really bothersome was that the family didn't handle it as well as he did,
Mm-hmm.
and it's harder. And it's like I can handle it a lot more than my wife or my kids can.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the difficulty comes in. And of course, the bigger the fan base, the more exposure you have, and there's always going to be someone out there that doesn't like what you're doing. It's just natural. And I think from a coaching standpoint and from a leadership standpoint, that's just part of the job,
Mm-hmm.
is to have
It
people
comes
out
with
there.
it.
Comes with it, and if you can recognize it as such, it won't affect you or destroy you as much as it could. And that's something that we always try to explain to my wife and explain to my kids and whatever. There's always going to be those attacks, and you just kind of let them go. There's also going to be people that are very positive.
Mm-hmm.
So deal with the positive, and that's one of the philosophies we have from a team standpoint. Deal with the positives, throw away the negatives, and just keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a coach, I think as a leader, probably the strongest skill you can have is that ability to move forward, and let the other things go behind. And whether you're coming from success or you're coming from failure, you just got to let it go and keep moving forward. And I think it's a tough skill to develop. I didn't have it when I was younger, but it's something I've developed as I've gotten older, and it's really helped me move on and continue to have achievements. That's why you said earlier, I don't worry about the 25 things that we've done before. That's over and done with. We've moved on. We've moved past it, and so I just think social media makes it harder, but it doesn't have to be harder
Mm-hmm.
if you handle it the right way.
Right. Coach, a lot of words will be used to describe you, and you've read, plenty of them. Master tactician, legendary, all of this and that. But how would you describe yourself as a coach?
Well, that's tough. I think first and foremost, I don't find myself technically that good of a coach. If someone calls me a master tactician, I think that's so far off, because I don't feel like I'm technically that great of a coach. I don't feel like I'm a big adjustment coach. I don't feel like I think there are coaches that are really, really good at that. Richard Del Rosario, my staff, is
Mm-hmm.
extremely good at making adjustments and seeing the game and doing it. And I allow him to do that. And I'll listen to him because I know he's better at it than I am.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm more relational. I'm a relational coach. I'm a chemistry coach. I really try to build chemistry. And I'm also very detailed oriented in terms of teaching the systems that we run. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a system oriented coach. And so I think those two things, I'm really relying on my system, and I really rely on the relationships that I build in my coaching career. And I try to put good people around me
Mm-hmm.
that will make up for some of my faults. And again, I don't think I'm a very good adjustment coach.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I can adjust from game to game, but in game, I'm not strong at that. And I recognize that. I've gotten better over the years because I get caught into doing it more and more the more practice you have.
mm-hmm.
But I've never felt I've been very good, and so I rely on others to help me out.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned, Coach, putting yourself in the company of good people. You brought Coach Johnny Abarrientos,
Mm-hmm.
your player in Alaska, to BMEG to help you,
Mm-hmm.
take that responsibility. Coach Richard Del Rosario, how big of a factor are these, gentlemen that could be underrated in what they do with the success that you've had?
Jeffrey Cariaso was
Caria-
another one.
Coach Jeff.
There was there.
Now is, if I may say, Coach Sean Chambers
Yeah.
in the Gilas program.
That's a mouthful to say about Sean, and how much he contributed in that OQT in a very, very short time. You know, he really was impactful. And again, these guys have all been impactful. You know, I think, you know, guys like Johnny and Jeffrey, Richard over time, you know, Johnny and Jeffrey played for me. Richard actually played for me, but a short time before he had his car accident and he had to retire. And then we met again when I came to Pure Foods. So these guys were, you know, they know me and they know my system, and they can teach it just as well as I can. So, you know, they're huge in the success, and they do everything, you know, behind the scenes. And I always say, you know, I get all the credit. You guys do all the work, and I get all the credit. And I think that's often true for head coaches. You know, we get a lot more credit than we should, and probably more blame than we should too as well. Sean in the OQT, I don't know. You know, he played for me for 13 years.
Right.
And he also played within the triangle for 13 years. And he was there as I developed the triangle from ground zero back in 1992 when we first started running it. He was our import. And it was through his acceptance that we were able to be good in the triangle in the very beginning, because it was tough. I was learning it on the fly and teaching it on the fly, and he was, you know, leading everybody else and saying, yeah, we can do this, we can do this. And those early years was a struggle, but we fought through it together, I felt. And so he saw the development of it through the whole time, and he saw it at its pinnacle when we won the Grand Slam in 96 and 97, 98, those years when we were playing it at its highest level. He was a part of that as well. So, you know, when he walked into the practice, you know, immediately he knew exactly what was going on, exactly what needed to be done. He reminded me of things that we had used to do and anyway, so, and the players, and talk about a guy who's relational. I feel I'm relational. I'm not half as relational as Sean is. Sean is such a relational guy. Everybody loves Sean. Really a great human being. So you combine that with the knowledge that he brought and being that great human being, being able to talk to young players. He was just an amazing addition to what we wanted to do. And hopefully he's continued to be an amazing addition. So guys like those, like Sean and Richard, and you know, they're so crucial to your own personal success.
Coach, you've seen these players, Coach Johnny Abarrientos, Richard, Coach Jeff Caria, Sean. How has the players in the PBA now evolved from the time when you started coaching?
Well,
Are they very different? Like we have Junmar Fajardo now that can shoot a three, lights out, you know.
Well, yeah, Junmar shouldn't be shooting threes.
But he just did. He just did.
He can shoot it, but you know, I mean, he's got so much power inside. I think the players today, as opposed, you know, I mean, every era is going to be different.
Every generation.
Yeah, every generation is going to be different. And I think it starts right now. The obvious one is that the skill level of players today are much more versatile. They're much more athletic. The game is played differently. It's played from the perimeter out to in. In the old days, it was more in to out.
Right.
And so, you know, you play from the three-point line. So guys are working on different things than they did when they back 20 years ago. So there's an evolving of the game. And as the game evolves, the players have to evolve as well. So they get added skills. They get bigger. I coached Peter Aguilar.
The dad of Japeth.
Yeah, the dad of Japeth, who was 6'6", and now I coach Japeth, who's 6'9", 6'10". I coached Irvin Soto, who was 6'7", and his son is now Kai is 7'3". So I mean, you can see the generations
Right.
how they get bigger. Right now, I coach Johnny Abarientos, who is about 5'8", 5'7", 5'8", and I'm coaching RJ
The nephew.
Abarientos now, his nephew, and he's about 5'10", 5'11". So he's also a generation that's gotten bigger and more athletic, and so the size and the athleticism is growing all the time, and you see that not only in our league in the PBA, but you also see that in the NBA. You see that in Europe. Guys are bigger, stronger, faster, and so the game evolves. And I think that's big thing for coaches, is that coaches have to evolve. And again, that's going back to the idea of continually moving forward. You have to move forward all the time, and you have to continue to grow, and you have to continue to evolve. Otherwise, the game will leave you behind.
Right.
And now, I mean, what's really nice about the Gilas team right now is that we've got generational talents on that team. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead or anything.
It's fine.
You've got Jumar, who is what, 33, 34 years
34?
old. He's 6'10", and he is a generational player. There's nobody like him throughout this whole generation. One of a kind, 7 MVP awards, and completely dominant, and had proven to be as dominant in Europe as well.
Right.
And I think that was the big surprise for everybody. I mean, yeah, he can dominate Europe, and maybe he can dominate a little bit in Asia, but there's no way he could dominate in Europe. And every coach that we played against came out with a scheme to stop Jumar. Tried to either double team him, or tried to front and deny him, tried to attack him on the pick and roll, so you leave him off the floor. I mean, they were doing everything they could to take Jumar out.
Yeah.
So you have that one generational, and he's kind of ending his career. He's another 2 or 3, maybe 5 years away from leaving, his career. And then you've got Kai Soto, who's 22 years old, who's 7'3". And how many Pinoys do you know who are 7'3" who can play the game? I mean, he's not just 7'3". He is a fluid 7'3". He is an intelligent 7'3". He sees the game. Maybe because he grew up so much with his father being a basketball player, like Steph Curry, following up with his dad. But there's a presence about Kai that people aren't taking it serious, I think, at this point, and that makes him a generational talent. And he is just starting his generational.
He's only
22.
So by the time that you join, let's say, the World Cup, that's a prime Kai for you.
Yeah, exactly. But right now, at this point, we've got 2 generational players that are joining and playing each other right now. He's at his peak, and Kai is reaching his peak. And this is what makes this particular Gilas team so unique, is that we have these 2 generational players that are combining at the moment. And that, to me, is what's so exciting about the Gilas team, and the potential that we have. The fact that we have 2 generational players there. I think Scotty Thompson is a generational player as well. I thought Johnny Abarientos was a generational player. There was no one like him at that time. And Scotty is a generational player in a different way. So I feel like we have 3 or 4 generational players on the Gilas team, and potential for more. Carl Tamayo could be a generational player, along the lines of an Alvin Patrimonio.
Wow.
Kevin Kimbao could be a generational player. And so, it's exciting times for Gilas right now. And that's why, we're hoping we can keep this group together and keep moving forward, because we do right at this point. And Justin Brownlee is actually a generational import.
And who would have thought?
We haven't seen an import like him for the last, having a career like this for 7 years. Sean Chambers, Billy Ray Bates, maybe. But Justin certainly is a generational talent as an import, naturalized player, playing with us as well. So again, that's just the way the players have evolved and gotten to this point right now, where we have our two biggest players, our three biggest players, we had Philams on our Gilas team, but our three biggest players were pure Filipinos. Jumar, Kai, and Japeth.
That's true.
And they were all 6'10", 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", 7'3". It's amazing.
It is.
It's amazing. And when we beat Latvia after the game, the coach came out, Bianchi, who was a famous European coach. He was the coach of the World Cup, won the coach of the World Cup here in Manila, awarded best coach in the World Cup. He came out and said, we couldn't handle the Philippines' size.
They're talking about how big we are
how
now.
big we were.
Right.
And they said we had a hard time handling their size. I mean, how many times have you heard that in the last 100 years in the Philippines about and that again, that's what makes it exciting.
Well, our big boys has evolved already with
bet.
the kind of game that they have. They have adapted to the change. But which would you rather have, Coach Tim? Because we know you're very cerebral. A player that's very skillful, or a player that has high IQ, basketball IQ?
Both.
Both.
You'd rather have both.
Of course.
And I think that basically you have to have both kinds of player on a team. It's hard to find them both in one player.
In the same person.
Same player. It's not all, and those guys are the special guys. The ones who have that great athleticism and that great IQ. They're the ones that jump to that. That's a Michael Jordan. That's a Kobe Bryant. They have the great physical gifts, and yet they have that mentality and instinct for the game. In my mind, it's a Scotty Thompson. That's a Justin Brownlee. And I think it's going to be a Kai Soto. It might be a Kevin Kimbao, Carl Tamayo. These guys are gifted, but they also know the game. And they're young still, but they're still developing, but they have those instincts. So I think we have those kind of players on the Gilas team. But you also have players who are just really gifted athletically. You need those on your team, and you need guys who are very cerebral. And I think they balance each other out. And that's what you look for when you're trying to build a team.
Coach, do you
don't
believe
find them all the time, though.
you can develop basketball IQ over time with experience? Because
Yeah.
skills can be developed.
Well, I think that what you're talking about is more instincts.
Right.
Some guys step on the court and have tremendous instincts. They can see a play develop. They can anticipate someone making a mistake offensively on the defensive side. They just have a really good feel for the game. But it's like me, and I just said it earlier. I've never felt I was very good at making adjustments during the game. But, you get forced into that situation so many times, finally, you have to develop it. And I still don't think I've developed it on a scale of 1 to 10. I might be a 7 at this point. I started off as a 3. I got to a 7. But Richard, who has that instinct, Richard Del Rosario, I think he starts off as an 8 already. He's already an 8, and he might be elevating to a 9 at this point.
And he's teaching you.
And I allow him to do it because he's better at it. I pass the baton to him and say, okay, Richard, tell me what I need to do because I don't know. And I think that happens with players. I think players over time, they start to develop that because they're forced into that position. And I think that it depends a lot on the teachers around them, the coaching that they get, the players that they get to play with. If you're playing with a very instinctive player, you tend to see him and watch him and can adapt that. And those guys who are like that are the ones that make the players around them better. I think the best description of Justin Brownlee, I mean, you can say so many things about Justin Brownlee, but the single most important thing that he does is he makes the players around him better. And because they see the way he plays and they see what he sees, they start to see what he sees, and that gives them a different perspective and elevates their game. And he's one of those guys. That was the knock on Michael Jordan when he was young. He was playing in that era of Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. And Larry Bird and Magic Johnson were always described as players who could make the around them better, you know. And Michael, in his early in his career, couldn't figure that out, according to everybody.
He was a standout on his own.
Yeah, he was locked into what he did.
Right.
And then he realized how important it was to himself to win rather than to just show up, show out. And so when he did that, he started to observe Magic and Larry and started to figure out what it took for him to be able to make players around him better. So that was something he developed later in his career. It wasn't something that was instinctual, but it was instinctual to Magic and Larry right off the bat. And Justin has that. Justin has that ability to elevate the game of everybody around him.
And bring everybody along to that same page.
Yeah, exactly.
Was Justin like that when he first arrived at Ginebra? We all know that he wasn't even the first choice for the team for that conference. Has he always been like that, or that's something that he,
I think it's something he's developed over time.
Over time.
He came to us in the beginning, and he was basically locked into being one kind of player. He was a stretch, what they call a stretch four. And he was an undersized stretch four, and that was one of the reasons he didn't make the NBA, because he was an undersized stretch four. But when he came to Manila, the demands on him to do so much more expanded his game. And I always think he had the mind to do it, but he was never put in that situation to do it. And when he came to Ginebra as an import, and we have so many demands on an import, he started to develop the other areas of his game. And that's why he's just grown as a player from year one to year two to year three, year four. I think right now he's playing better than he's ever played before. Even though he's 36 now, he's playing his best basketball right now. And I don't see him slowing down anytime soon.
And you'll have him back for Ginebra this conference.
Thank goodness. Yes.
Thank goodness. But
yeah,
he would be nowhere, like rather be nowhere.
No, he fits everything around the playing for Ginebra. I mean, he signed a contract. He's playing in Indonesia at the moment, but he made the contract finish for the upcoming conference. So he had a couple other offers that would extend it beyond, and he turned those down, and he took Indonesia because they were going to finish on August 4th. He's still there. He's not with us yet in practice, but he'll finish by August 4th, and then he'll fly here to Manila.
Just in time for
what we do. And Gilas, and the fact that he's naturalized has been a priority in his life now as well. So everything is built around Gilas and Ginebra, and he really feels he's Pinoy. And I'm really proud of him in terms of adapting and adopting to the country.
And the commitment.
Yeah, the commitment that he has.
Is that the same thing that, what makes this team stand out, the Gilas team that we currently have, the commitment that they have to the program as well, coming into the tournaments, not only just looking forward to November, but also, again, World Cup, Olympics in LA?
Well, we hope. We hope that everybody will stick together. We hope that everybody will come along. We're doing our best to keep it together. As of now, we're having fun. I mean, there's a great chemistry on the team. They like being around each other. There is nobody on the team that tries to stand out or be better than the other guys. They all realize when they look around the room and they go, wow, these guys are good. I'm not the only good one here.
Right.
And I think a lot of that comes from the humility of the leaders. Junmar, you won't find a more humble person than Junmar.
True.
Japeth is another one. Justin is another one. Scotty is another one. I mean, these guys just reek with humility. And so I think that is the primary attitude of this team is their humility as a group.
And you mentioned this before in previous interviews, Coach. the pool will stay as like intimate as it is, because it's easier in that sense, since the preparation that you have for the tournaments are shorter as
Right.
well. But you're looking to add additions, hopefully soon. Benny Boat Ride. Can you give us an update on that?
Well, first of all, Benny's not naturalized yet.
Not
The
yet.
process is not done.
Mm-hmm.
I think, it's not like we can play Benny and Justin together. It's one or the other. So, Justin's playing at an incredibly high level right now, and Benny is someone that we're looking at, and we see a little Justin in him, except he's like
Taller.
4 inches taller.
Right.
So so we're excited about having him
Mm-hmm.
and joining us when he can, and getting him into the program and developing his game according to our system. And that's the biggest part right now, is that Justin is so well versed in what we do and so comfortable with what we do that there is an automatic flow that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And if we change Justin, will we have that same flow? No, but we hope to have it in time
Mm-hmm.
as we teach. And that's the difficulty in it right now, is that if we make an abrupt change between Justin and Benny, how long is it going to take us to get back to that level where we were with Justin? And again, Justin's playing at such a high level. Why would you fix something
Right.
that's not
broken?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, Justin has a lot to give.
Right.
I think we have to continue to look at Justin in terms of his game and not his age.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of those rare players where I think that's going to be appropriate. But we are excited about Benny, and we're trying to get him here in November so he can join us in our preparation for the window.
Qualifier.
But unless something, knock on wood, if I can't find any wood, maybe in my head, something happens to Justin,
Hopefully not.
then we hope to have Benny naturalized by that time and ready to step in.
Mm-hmm.
And but at this point, Justin's still the man.
Right. Coach, you've mentioned it numerous times in this conversation, and I think your success wouldn't have been possible without also the commitment and the support of your family, your wife, your children. How big and significant have the role they played, not being actually very visible to a lot of people. Some people didn't even know that it was your son. It was cheering, it was shouting in that game versus Latvia. They were like thinking, like, who's that? Who's that boy? My
son ends up getting more print than his dad and the players. I mean, he was a sensation there in the crowd. So we all laugh about that from our family. He laughs about it as well. And I think some people thought he was like faking it up, but that's totally him. He's always, throwing his hands up, and he's very exaggerated in his movements. They were so typically Trevor, and that's what we say, typical Trevor. And it was great. I really enjoyed the fact that my wife and son came to the OQT. They didn't stay with me. They stayed in a separate room. I didn't see them very much until afterwards. But it was great to have them there. They come all the way from Manila to watch the game. So that was nice. And when I first was presented the Gilas program, my family was not excited about it. They were there, part of it, seeing what was happening to Chad, but it's one of those things. Once you commit, then everybody jumped on the bandwagon and said, "Okay, let's do it." But my kids are critical. My wife is very critical. She'll criticize.
She'll tell you.
She'll tell me what I did wrong in the games, and 90% of the time she's right. And she grew up in a basketball home. Her father played for LaSalle, and her brother Eddie Villaplana played for LaSalle during the Dindo Pumaren,
Days.
Joey Santa Maria days. And so she's grown up with basketball, and so she knows the game pretty well. So she can spot it, and she knows me really well. So yeah, that without them, I don't know where we would be. But they're just so much support, that we don't mention. Freddie Uitensu in my career was huge, a huge mentor. Once I left Alaska, Ramon Ong and the support that he has given me and the teams and all around. I mentioned it in one of the interviews. I think that when I won the People Asia Man of the Year award, and I said, this shouldn't be mine. This should be Al Francis Chua. Al Francis' impact in the Asian Games, which is what the award was for, was incredible. And without him, there's just no way we win that Asian Game gold. So the support comes from all over.
Angles.
Yeah, all angles. And one of my favorite expressions, and Justin came out with it and said it himself, because we use it all the time with Ginebra and Pure Foods and the like, and we used it with Gilas very prominently. And Justin always comes out and says it's my favorite saying, is one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. And it's a John Maxwell saying. And I'll say it again, one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. And you can never achieve anything on your own. Not at a not by any means the highest level. It's always about putting a team together, people supporting you and helping you out. And that's probably one of the greatest things you learn about leadership. You're not on an island by yourself, and you've got to have great people around you if you're going to achieve. I've been fortunate with my family. I've been fortunate with my management. I don't know. I just feel like, I've been led all this through, and through a higher power, through the Lord, and this has been an amazing journey for me.
Right. Well, Coach, you mentioned now that Ginebra is back in practice, there's twice a day practice before the opening of the season. Do you have time for fun yourself? I know basketball is fun, but do you still play tennis in the morning before you go to practices? I know you enjoy that.
Well, there's with the certain times like preseason, we don't do 2-a-days every day. We do a lot during the preseason because we're preparing for this season. So yeah, you get a little limited. You don't get to play as much golf or tennis that you would like. But during the season, I really try to almost daily either play tennis or golf. And I think that's really important just for my physical health and for my mental health to continue to do that. And so I really work hard in trying to do that. My wife is a workoutaholic. She works out. She's a marathoner, and she works out all the time. And so she doesn't begrudge me when I want to go out and play tennis or golf or whatever. And she's always encouraged me to go do that stuff because she knows how it affects her, and she knows it's going to affect me positively. So we find time, but there are certain times like during the OQT, when we're in I'm not a gym guy. My wife is a gym person. I'm not.
You're not
a gym.
the weights guy.
No, I don't go to weights. I don't go to treadmills. I'll go out and do long walks. I'll do hour and a half walks. If I can't play tennis or golf. So every day in Latvia, I'd go out for actually 2 times a day. I'd go out for an hour and a half walk.
Which one do you enjoy more, or which one are you better at, tennis or golf?
I'm terrible at both. I'm not good at either one, but I enjoy it. Really, I'm not very good at either one. I guess for my age, I'm okay for a tennis player. And in golf, I'm very average. I don't play all the time. Who's super in golf is George Gallant, man.
Yeah, the clubs are banning Coach George now.
He is so good. It is just amazing. I'm sorry, George, you're a great coach, but you should have been playing golf as a professional, as a profession. He is he's just a natural, and he's spectacular.
Mhm.
So if anytime you compare yourself to him, you are a terrible golfer,
Right.
because he is out of this
He's
world.
taking everybody's money in a
Uh,
golf tournament.
I won't say that because I don't want to get him in trouble, but yeah, it's true. He does take everybody's money.
His name is everywhere. If you see the tournaments and
He's
the
a
clubs.
7-time consecutive champion of our club,
Right.
Alabama Country Club.
In the South, and hole-in-ones. He does it like it's an everyday thing.
I actually was with him when he hit a hole-in-one one time, number 7.
Right.
I think he's hitting nine or
recently.
10 now.
Right.
Might be 11, but I was there for number 7.
Coach, to wrap up, you've always, given so much credit to other people, and putting them on a level like Coach Richard is, this person, Coach Johnny, George, and your wife. Like, how big of a deal to you that when people look up to you, where do you draw that inspiration and motivation to? What motivates a coach like you that motivates other people?
Well, I go back to the idea that I really like being around the guys. Just really, it's a challenge every day to be around the guys, and I love to watch guys learn and develop. I think that doesn't get old.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't get when I started, and 30 plus years later, it still gets me up in the morning and gets me over to practice. And we got some new guys in practice now, and Stephen Holt and Isaac Go, RJ Barrientos. So we got Paul Garcia from Ateneo that we picked up. They're brand new. They're brand new to the system. They're brand new to what we do. And it's fun to see them come in and try to blend and to teach them and talk to them. And it's just a really good feel. And so I never get tired of that. And so I don't know, I keep saying that. I've never worked a day in my life. And so when I get to the Gilas team, it's the same thing. I love watching Kai and Carl and Kevin, the young guys. I like watching them get better and be excited about doing new things and different things, which we do. So I don't know, that's where my motivation comes. It just doesn't stop. And again, it's the idea, move forward. I think Phil Jackson has that great quote, if it works out, that's great. We're moving on. And he says, then he follows it up by, if it doesn't work out, that's great. We're moving on. And so no matter what, he's just constantly moving on. And I think I learned from him, observing him through the years and watching the way he moved on. That's where I learned it the most. And I think that's a gift that he gave me that he has no idea about.
Were you a Bulls fan growing up?
No, I was actually I was a Laker fan. Well, I was a Milwaukee Bucks fan because I was a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar fan growing up. And then he was moved to the Lakers, so I became a Laker fan. And then they drafted Magic Johnson, so then I continued to be a Laker fan after Kareem retired. And then after that, Magic got the HIV, and he had to retire. So I didn't know kind of where I wanted to do. And then the Bulls started running the triangle. I ran the triangle. I got to know Tex Winter, and he became my mentor. So I became a Bulls fan. And then they went to the Lakers. And so I became a Lakers fan again. And then Phil Jackson retired from the Lakers. Tex Winter retired. They moved on from the Lakers. And then I met Eric Spoelstra.
Right.
And now I'm a huge Miami Heat fan.
Well, we're huge fans of the Gilas, team that we have right now, and you did a spectacular job, Coach. I know you don't like being complimented like that, but you did, and we want to thank you. You've been mentioning generational players. You're a generational coach, and you're such a blessing to this country. And who would have thought that, that 9-year-old American boy that came to the Philippines and studied in Baler would end up breaking records and, showing us what the potential is for Philippine basketball. Thank you so much, Coach Tim Conan.
Never thought about it that way, but yeah, I was the guy, and I still got people that contact me from Belair, from my 5th grade class in Belair. They still in touch with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
How do we end this? Do you know, were you better in your Tagalog now?
No,
No?
never. I'm better in my understanding, but I just don't practice it.
Maraming salamat, Coach.
Sige.
Thank
you.